Welcome to our channel History of Coins, where we explore the hidden gems of numismatics. In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating world of rare quarter-dollar coins, cause some of these coins hold an incredible history, and some are worth millions. So today, we are gonna uncover the rarest varieties and their values. So make sure to watch the complete video and find out if you have one of these. Now let's continue our today's video. Top 1 today, we're going to talk about a coin that nearly every American has seen, touched, or maybe even still has somewhere in a drawer or jar. It's the 1776 to 1976 Washington quarter, also known as the Bicentennial quarter. But don't be fooled by its common appearance, because in rare cases, this quarter can be worth much more than 25 cents. In fact, one particular version of this coin has been valued at a jaw-dropping amount, and we'll tell you exactly how much at the end of this video. Trust me, you'll want to stay tuned. Let's start with a little background. In 1976, the United States celebrated its 200th birthday, its bicentennial. To commemorate the occasion, the U.S. Mint did something truly special. Instead of the usual quarter with the familiar eagle on the reverse, they issued a unique design featuring a colonial drummer boy and a torch of victory encircled by 13 stars. That drummer boy design became iconic, patriotic, symbolic, and incredibly memorable. The obverse of the coin still features George Washington's profile, but the date at the bottom reads 1776 to 1976. Instead of a single year, it was a celebration of the past and a nod to the future, and millions of these special quarters were minted and released into circulation across the country. Now, because so many were made, most people assume these coins are only worth face value. And for most, that's true. A circulated 1776 to 1976 quarter is common and can be found in change even today. But here's the twist, not all bicentennial quarters are the same. Some are extremely rare, and it's these rare versions that collectors are chasing like buried treasure. So, what makes certain 1776 to 1976 quarters valuable? Let's dive into the details. First, let's talk about errors. The U.S. Mint produces billions of coins, and mistakes, while rare, do happen. In the case of the bicentennial quarter, one of the most sought-after errors is the double die. This error occurs when the coin is struck twice with a slightly misaligned die, causing parts of the design to appear doubled. If you look at the lettering, like United States of America or quarter dollar, you may notice a shadowed or overlapping effect. That's a clear sign of a double die, and collectors will pay big money for it. Another valuable error is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin isn't properly aligned during minting, causing the design to be printed off to one side. A quarter with a significant off-center strike, especially one where the date is still visible, can be incredibly valuable. Then there's the wrong planchet error. Some bicentennial quarters were accidentally struck on blank coins intended for other denominations, like nickels, dimes, or even foreign coins. These planchet errors result in coins that are the wrong size, thickness, or color, and when that happens with a coin as historically important as the bicentennial quarter, the value can skyrocket. Also watch for clad layer errors. The standard 1776 to 1976 quarter is made from a copper core sandwich between layers of nickel. But sometimes, one of those nickel layers doesn't get applied correctly, exposing the copper underneath. This can give the coin a strange, two-tone appearance, and that's another highly collectible variation. Now let's talk about a version of the coin that many people overlook, the proof and silver editions. The U.S. Mint produced special collector's versions of the bicentennial quarter, including some struck in 40% silver. These were never intended for general circulation. They came in special sets and were minted in much lower quantities. If you find one of these in the wild, or better yet, if you have one that was never used, still in perfect condition, it could be worth much more than you think. How do you know if you have a silver bicentennial quarter? Check the edge of the coin. Regular clad quarters will show a visible copper stripe, but silver quarters will have a solid silver edge with no copper showing. That's a quick visual cue that you might be holding something valuable. Of course, condition is key. A rare error coin that's scratched up and heavily worn might still be valuable, but a coin in pristine, uncirculated condition can command top dollar. If you believe you have a rare version of the 1776 to 1976 quarter, consider getting it professionally graded and authenticated. That small step can make a massive difference in value. Now, here's where things get really exciting. A rare 1776 to 1976 Washington quarter, featuring a unique mint error and struck in silver. In absolutely flawless condition, has sold in the collector's market for an astounding $83,000. Yes, you heard that right. A single quarter, originally worth just 25 cents, sold for $83,000. That's the kind of coin that changes lives. So what are you waiting for? Go check your change jar, your old coin collection, or that forgotten box of keepsakes. The next great coin discovery could be right in front of you, and you'd never know unless you look. Top 2, we're taking a closer look at one of the most iconic modern quarters minted in recent history, the 2021 Washington quarter, crossing the Delaware. This isn't just another shiny coin that jingles in your pocket. This quarter is a tribute to a defining moment in American history, and believe it or not, a rare version of this coin could be worth a small fortune. That's right, a simple quarter that most people don't think twice about could potentially bring in tens of thousands of dollars. But only if you know what to look for. So stick with me until the very end, because the value of this coin might just blow your mind. Let's start with the story behind the coin. In 2021, the U.S. Mint brought back an old favorite, George Washington, but with a brand new twist. After the completion of the America the Beautiful Quarters series, this special quarter was introduced to honor General Washington's legendary crossing of the Delaware River on the night of December 25, 1776, a pivotal moment during the American Revolutionary War. The design is nothing short of cinematic. On the reverse side of the coin, we see George Washington standing boldly at the bow of a boat, his sword drawn, as soldiers paddle through icy waters toward battle. It captures determination, grit, and leadership. And let's be honest, it's one of the most powerful designs we've seen on a quarter in decades. But this coin isn't just about great artwork or patriotic symbolism. It's also quickly gaining attention in the collector world because of errors, rarity, and unexpected variations that make some of these coins extremely valuable. Now you're probably wondering, what makes a 2021 quarter so special? After all, it's only a couple of years old, right? Well, here's the thing. Even modern coins can become incredibly valuable when minting mistakes occur. And the crossing the Delaware quarter is no exception. Let's talk about the most talked about minting errors found on this coin. One of the most valuable is the double die error. This happens when a coin is struck more than once by the die in a slightly different position. On the 2021 quarter, this might show up as doubled letters in the words United States of America, quarter dollar, or even on George Washington's name. When doubling is clearly visible, especially under magnification, collectors go wild for it. Next up is the off-center strike. These are coins that weren't aligned correctly when struck, causing the design to be pushed to one side, sometimes dramatically. The more off-center it is, and the more visible the date remains, the more valuable the coin becomes. Then we have the rare die break or cut error. This happens when part of the die cracks or chips off, causing a raised lump or blob of metal to appear somewhere on the coin. Some 2021 quarters have been found with large die breaks near the rim or around Washington's head. These flaws are rare and often one of a kind, making them highly sought after. Another hot topic is the struck-through error. This occurs when debris, like grease, cloth, or even small bits of metal, gets between the die and the planchet during minting. The result? A strange, ghost-like distortion on the coin's surface. It might look like a mistake to most people, but to collectors, it's a golden ticket. And of course, there's the wrong planchet error, a rare case where the quarter is struck on a coin blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin. This results in a lighter, thinner, or oddly colored quarter that looks just slightly off. These are extremely rare, but when they do surface, they can sell for big bucks. Don't forget, condition matters just as much as the error itself. A rare error coin that's been heavily circulated and scratched might still be worth something, but a flawless example? One that's never been used, untouched, and professionally graded? That's where the serious money comes in. Now here's a little insider tip. When you're checking your 2021 crossing the Delaware quarters, pay extra close attention to the Philadelphia Mint mark, a small p. Some of the most notable error coins reported so far have come from the Philadelphia Mint. So if you see that little p under the words, "In God We Trust," you might want to take a closer look. What makes this coin especially interesting for collectors is that it's still so new. Many people haven't even looked at their 2021 quarters twice. That means these hidden gems are still out there. They could be in your wallet, sitting in your car's cup holder, or mixed in with spare change in a jar at home. It's an exciting time to be a collector because modern era coins like this are gaining traction fast. And as more people find out about them, the demand and the value will only go up. So, what's the real-world value of one of these rare 2021 crossing the Delaware quarters? Well, here comes the moment you've all been waiting for. A single 2021 Washington quarter with a significant and rare mint error in pristine uncirculated condition has been valued at an unbelievable $81,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. A coin minted just a couple of years ago, worth only 25 cents in circulation, could actually be worth $81,000 if it has the right combination of rarity, error, and condition. So next time you get change at the store or you're sorting through coins at home, don't ignore the 2021 quarters. Look closely, because you never know when your everyday change could turn into an extraordinary discovery. Top 3, we're going to uncover the mystery behind one of the most intriguing coins in American currency history, the 1965 Washington quarter. Now, I know what you're thinking. A 1965 quarter? Isn't that one of the most common coins out there? Well, yes and no. While it's true that millions of these were minted, there's a much bigger story behind this coin, one that includes a major shift in U.S. coinage, hidden minting errors, and a few ultra-rare variations that have collectors losing their minds. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll learn how to spot one of the most valuable quarters ever released, and trust me, you don't want to miss the final price tag. It's not just impressive, it's unbelievable. Let's rewind the clock to the early 1960s. Up until that point, quarters were made of 90% silver. That's right, your grandparents' pocket change actually had real silver in it. But by 1964, rising silver prices caused a coin shortage across the country. People were hoarding silver coins, and the U.S. Mint knew something had to change. Enter 1965, the year everything flipped. In that year, the Mint officially stopped using silver for quarters and switched to a new clad composition. A copper core sandwiched between layers of nickel. That's the quarter we all know today. The 1965 quarter was the first ever clad quarter, a historic turning point in American coinage. But here's where things get very interesting. During that transition period, there were tons of moving parts at the Mint. Silver quarters were still being produced into early 1965 with the 1964 date, and clad quarters were starting to roll out with the new 1965 date. In that chaotic overlap, some mistakes happened. Mistakes that today are worth a fortune. One of the most legendary errors is the 1965 quarter struck on a silver planchet. You heard that right. A few 1965 quarters, despite being dated 1965, were accidentally struck using leftover 90% silver blanks mint for the previous year. These ultra-rare coins look almost identical to the regular ones. But if you know what to look for, you just might spot one. So how can you tell? Start by checking the edge. A regular 1965 clad quarter will have a copper-colored stripe along the edge. That's the copper core peeking through. But a silver quarter? Solid silver all the way around. No copper. It'll also weigh slightly more, around 6.25 grams, compared to 5.67 grams for the clad version. That might not sound like much, but to a collector, it's everything. Now let's talk errors. The kinds of mistakes that make ordinary coins extraordinary. One highly valuable type is the double die error, where parts of the design, like Liberty, In God We Trust, or quarter dollar, appear doubled due to a misaligned die strike. These are rare, and the bolder the doubling, the higher the value. Next is the off-center strike, where the coin's design is misaligned and part of it is missing. If a 1965 quarter is struck far off-center but still shows the date, it becomes a major collector's piece. There's also the wrong planchet error. Imagine a 1965 quarter struck on a dime planchet. It would be too small, too light, and look, off. That's a red flag for collectors, and they're always on the hunt for these anomalies. And then we have clipped planchet errors, where the blank coin was cut improperly, leaving a crescent-shaped chunk missing. These coins are odd-looking, but that uniqueness can drive their value through the roof. Don't forget about strike-through errors, where foreign material like grease or debris gets between the die and the coin, causing bizarre imprints or missing details. Again, rare and often one of a kind. But even without errors, a 1965 quarter can be valuable if it's in exceptional condition. We're talking about coins that never entered circulation. They were pulled straight from the mint and preserved in pristine, uncirculated state. These are known as mint state (MS) coins, and they're graded on a scale from 1 to 70. The closer a coin gets to 70, the more valuable it becomes, especially if it has no blemishes, scratches, or signs of wear. So here's the big question. Could there be a valuable 1965 quarter hiding in your change jar? The answer is absolutely yes. These coins are still out there. Because they were so common, people never paid much attention to them. But now that collectors are hunting down the rare variations, those same coins, the ones sitting in coffee cans, couch cushions, and desk drawers, could be worth a lot more than anyone ever imagined. And now, it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. A rare 1965 Washington quarter, struck by mistake on a 90% silver planchet in immaculate uncirculated condition, has been valued at a jaw-dropping $79,000. Yes, you heard that right. $79,000 for a coin that looks like something you could find in your spare change right now. Don't underestimate the power of a simple coin. The 1965 quarter is a piece of history, a symbol of change, and in the right condition, a potential jackpot. Top 4 were shining a spotlight on a coin that may seem ordinary at first glance but holds a secret legacy of change, controversy, and incredible collector potential, the 1967 Washington quarter. Now don't let it simple. Warn look fool you. While most of these quarters went straight into everyday circulation and lived hard lives in vending machines and coat pockets, a select few were struck under unusual conditions. And a rare handful are now considered extremely valuable in the numismatic world. So stay with me as we dig deep into what makes this quarter so special. Because by the end of this video, you'll know how to identify rare 1967 quarters that could be worth more than some luxury cars or even a college education. Let's jump into a bit of history first. The year was 1967, and America was in the middle of a major transformation. The country was dealing with social change, cultural revolution, and economic shifts. And while it may not have seemed like a big deal to most people at the time, one quiet change was taking place right in everyone's pocket: the removal of silver from American coinage. After 1964, the U.S. Mint stopped making dimes and quarters with silver. Rising silver prices had created a nationwide coin shortage as people began hoarding coins for their metal value. To keep money flowing through the economy, the Mint replaced the silver content with a copper-nickel-clad composition, a core of copper, layered with nickel on the outside. That's the version most of us are familiar with today. So by the time 1967 rolled around, quarters no longer contained any silver, at least, they weren't supposed to. Now here's where things get exciting. Due to the high demand for coinage and pressure on the Mint, 1967 was one of those years where production was fast, furious, and full of chances for error. That's a recipe for rare and valuable coins. First, let's talk about planchet errors, specifically quarters that were accidentally struck on leftover silver blanks from 1964 or earlier. While the Mint had officially stopped using silver for quarters in 1965, mistakes happened. A very small number of silver planchets remained in the Mint's inventory and were mistakenly used to strike 1967 quarters. These coins are exceptionally rare. They look slightly different, weigh more, around 6.25 grams instead of the 5.67 grams of a clad quarter, and lack the telltale copper stripe on the edge. If you come across a 1967 quarter that feels heavier, sounds different when dropped, or has a solid silver-colored edge, you might be holding something incredibly valuable. Next up, let's talk about strike errors. One of the most sought-after types is the double die error. This happens when the die used to stamp the coin has a misalignment, resulting in a visible doubling of letters, numbers, or design features. On 1967 quarters, collectors have found doubling in the words "Liberty" and "God We Trust," and even in George Washington's eye and hair details. These errors can often be spotted with the naked eye or a magnifying glass, and the more dramatic the doubling, the more collectors are willing to pay. Then there's the off-center strike. This occurs when the blank coin, called a planchet, isn't properly aligned in the press. The result is a coin where the design is pushed to one side, sometimes cutting off parts of the date or lettering. If the date remains visible and the misalignment is significant, these coins can command serious premiums. Another rare type of error is the struck-through error, where foreign objects, like cloth, metal shavings, or grease, interfere with the minting process, leaving unusual textures or imprints on the coin's surface. These errors are fascinating because each one is completely unique. It's like having a fingerprint from the Mint itself, And let's not forget about wrong planchet errors, where a 1967 quarter might have been struck on a blank mint for a penny, nickel, or even a foreign coin. These coins are instantly recognizable due to their strange size, weight, or color, and they're like gold in the eyes of collectors. Now here's something many people don't realize: 1967 quarters were never released as proof coins, and the mint didn't mark coins with mint marks that year. That means there were no coins from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco bearing their usual P, D, or S marks. The reason? To discourage coin hoarding and collecting during the coin shortage. As a result, uncirculated examples are a bit trickier to come by, and that makes high-grade specimens even more valuable. So here's what you want to look for: a 1967 quarter with no copper stripe along the edge. This could mean it was struck on a silver planchet. Any unusual weight: silver planchets weigh more than clad ones. Clear doubling in the text or design. Major off-center strikes with the date still visible. Odd color, texture, or shape. Clues that point to a mint error. A coin in mint state or uncirculated condition, free from heavy scratches or wear. If you think you have something rare, get it evaluated by a reputable coin grading service like PCGS or NGC. Professional grading not only authenticates the coin but also locks in its value and makes it easier to sell to serious collectors. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for: one exceptionally rare 1967 Washington quarter. Struck on a silver planchet, with a strong mint error and preserved in high uncirculated condition, has been valued by experts at an astonishing $78,000. That's right, $78,000 for a coin that looks like every other quarter you've seen in your life. But that's the magic of numismatics: the hidden stories, the tiny mistakes, and the overlooked details that turn pocket change into priceless artifacts. So don't overlook your change. Take a closer look at every 1967 quarter you come across. Because the next time you hear that clink of a coin in your hand, it might just be the sound of a small fortune. Top 5. We're diving into a fascinating piece of American numismatic history: the 1970 Washington quarter. At first glance, it might seem like just another coin in your change, but trust me, this particular quarter hides some secrets that could make it incredibly valuable. So listen up carefully, coin collectors and enthusiasts, because this story might just change the way you look at your pocket change forever. The 1970 Washington quarter was minted during a time of great change in the U.S. mint production process. By 1970, the mint had long since transitioned from silver to clad coins, a sandwich of copper and nickel, after the silver shortage crisis of the mid-1960s. The 1970 quarter is made entirely from this copper-nickel clad composition, and unlike earlier quarters, it no longer contains any silver. This might make it seem less special, but appearances can be deceiving. What makes the 1970 quarter particularly interesting is not just its composition, but the errors and rare varieties that emerged from the minting process that year. Errors are like the fingerprints of history: unintentional, unique, and sometimes worth a fortune. And 1970 had some very intriguing ones. One of the most famous errors for the 1970 quarter is the double die variety. This occurs when the coin's design is struck twice, slightly off alignment, causing a shadow or doubling effect on parts of the coin. For the 1970 Washington quarter, this doubling often appears on the lettering, especially on the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," as well as the date itself. If you look closely, you might also spot doubling on George Washington's hair or the rim of the coin. This subtle but striking error is highly sought after by collectors and can significantly boost the coin's value. Another remarkable error from 1970 is the off-center strike. This happens when the planchet, the blank piece of metal destined to become a coin, is misaligned in the press. The result? Part of the coin's design is missing, and the struck image is pushed off to one side. Off-center strikes that still show the date clearly and have a significant misstrike can be extremely rare and valuable. 1970 also saw some clipped planchet errors, where the blank metal piece was improperly cut, leaving a missing crescent-shaped chunk along the edge of the coin. These clipped quarters have a distinctive look that instantly catches a collector's eye, especially when combined with other errors or high-quality strike. One of the most fascinating things about these errors is that each one tells a story about the production process at the mint, a glimpse behind the scenes of how coins were made, sometimes imperfectly, in a massive mechanical operation. And while most coins circulated and wore down over time, the rare ones that survived with their errors intact and pristine condition are now worth serious money. Speaking of condition, It's worth noting that the value of a 1970 Washington quarter skyrockets if it's in uncirculated or mint state condition. This means the coin looks nearly as fresh as the day it left the mint, with no scratches, dings, or wear. Coins graded at higher levels, like MS 65 or above, command premium prices because they're so rare and pristine. Now, why should collectors pay attention to the 1970 quarter specifically? Because despite being minted in the millions, only a handful of those error coins, double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets exist in top condition. That scarcity is what drives their value through the roof. If you have a 1970 quarter tucked away somewhere, here's a quick checklist for you. Look for any doubling in the lettering or date. Check the edge of the coin for missing chunks or irregularities. Weigh the coin and compare it to a standard quarter. Errors in weight can signal something unusual. See if the design appears off-center or incomplete. If you spot anything that looks off or unusual, it's worth having it professionally graded by a trusted coin grading service like PCGS or NGC. Authentication and grading can make all the difference in unlocking the true market value of your coin. All right, here comes the exciting part. The value. A rare 1970 Washington quarter featuring a major minting error, preserved in high-grade condition, has been known to fetch an incredible $76,000 from collectors eager to add such a unique piece to their collections. Yes, you heard that correctly. $76,000 for a single quarter that, if you're lucky, could be sitting right under your nose. That's the magic of coin collecting: ordinary coins, extraordinary stories, and the chance that something you overlook might be a hidden treasure. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive into the world of the 1970 Washington quarter. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more amazing coin content, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a chance to discover the next valuable coin in your pocket. Until next time, keep hunting, keep collecting, and keep those eyes sharp, because your next fortune might just be a quarter away.